Well, welcome everybody to one of our Zoom business booths. We are so excited to have another great guest here to help us today. And we are talking about a topic that nobody probably wants to talk about, but everybody needs to know about and talk about. So, Tim Mulhall is from Wright-Patt Credit Union. We also have Tiffany here from Wright-Patt Credit Union with us who helped make the connection. And Tim, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and why you're in this space of fraud prevention?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. Where to start? So I guess the easiest was my role, right? Why I got here is a little bit different, but my role, I am currently the director of fraud risk management with Wright-Patt Credit Union. I've been with Wright-Patt for about 2 years. Prior to that, I worked in other financial institutions, U.S. Bank, Discover, doing any manner of things related to fraud and fraud prevention, not doing the fraud, investigations, as well as anti-money laundering investigations, know your customer type, due diligence matters as well. A lot of operational fraud and the like. Um, Before I kind of actually fell into this, which it kind of goes to why I love what I'm doing. Is I used to be an attorney and I practiced for a number of years, and it got to the point where it really wasn't for me anymore. And I fell into the world of financial crimes, essentially, right? With fraud and anti-money laundering. And I've immediately fell in love, fell hard, love the investigation piece of it, love trying to help people. It's an opportunity to do something good. And so ever since then, that's what I've wanted to do. So, I've invested all my time in this and learning this and trying to be the best at it that we possibly can be. Fraud's never going anywhere. Unfortunately, sometimes people choose the easier way, and fraud can be that. So, my goal is to try to keep up and if we can get ahead of it and stop as much fraud as we can.
Yeah, so you have job security, which is good for you, and maybe not good
Yes.
for the world is what we need it for, right? But yeah, to your point, and even today, I mean, I know there's so much that can happen in fraud in general, but you're going to keep it at kind of a basic level, but also helping people
Yeah.
understand, just kind of what to look out for, how to prevent it in general. And if people have questions along the way, like I said, we're recording it here, we're live streaming it. We have some folks on here live with us. So basically, if anybody has any questions or thoughts to add, I think Tim, you just said jump on in, right?
All right. Yeah, happy to. So I'm
Okay.
going to share my screen. I got a little bit of a presentation here just to keep me on track.
Yeah.
But I'm happy if there's anybody out there that has questions that's joining. I'd love to answer them as we go.
Okay.
All right. So let me pull it up here. All right. And Chris, if you want to just let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, you're good to go.
All right. Well, appreciate it. All right. So just a quick thing here. I just with Wright-Patt, this is our why. This is our purpose, right? Everyone deserves a caring financial partner who builds hope and improves well-being. I try to do that through fraud prevention. I try to do that through education, awareness. That's my main goal. That's how I try to serve our members. So that's why I'm here today. That's what I do on a daily basis. I want to help people. I want to protect people if we can, and I want to give everybody the tools to protect themselves. That's one of my main goals, because the only way to stop fraud is everybody together. It's not just me. It's not just my fraud team at Wright-Patt. It's everybody together. I already went through this a little bit more about me, but you don't need to see that. So yeah, as Chris said, like kind of start with the basics. What is it? Where is it? What does it look like? One of the things that I'm kind of big on is ask questions. And this is not asking questions of those around you. This is not asking questions of experts. This is asking questions of yourself. So when you're ever presented with something that seems unusual, my thought process goes through the who, what, where, when, why, and how, honestly. So, you think about it, you mentioned already, you got your phishing emails, you got your vishing, your smishing, any kind of ishing you can possibly think of, zishing with Zoom. I promise that's not this. Um, so, who's contacting me? That's probably the first and foremost, right? Anytime we're looking with fraud, it's probably something that looks like either a sale or concerning. It's a delivery notice. We're entering the holidays. I know everybody gets those. Hey, your package is delayed. It's held at customs. All those types of things. So who's contacting me, and why are they contacting me? Um, when are they contacting me? You get an email that's sent at 3:30 a.m. That's probably not a legitimate email. I mean, some do, certainly, some overnight emails, but these are the context clues, so to speak, that you can look at when you're evaluating a situation that feels unusual. So I always think you kind of gradually go up those stairs. You ask yourself those questions, and then you build that profile of, hey, is this normal, or is this something that I should really kind of get away from here? Report this. Say this is fraud. Um, so what is fraud? The simple definition, break it all the way down. Something bad is done to somebody by someone else. Someone wins, someone loses, essentially, right? Someone's taking money from somebody else. That person doesn't have a right to that money, or that person manipulated that other person to provide them that money. So obviously there's a technical definition, when we get to that criminal aspect of it, but at the end of the day, somebody did something bad to somebody else, and money is the source. So pretty basic. um the evolution, it's kind of funny that we talk about the evolution of fraud, because everybody wants to talk about AI right now. But I can also tell you that one of the biggest areas of fraud that we've been fighting over the past couple years is check fraud, and checks have been around for forever. um, it, it's really hard for, I should say it this way, like, it's always going to be the easiest path, or the path of least resistance. If a criminal's walking down the street and they're going to steal a car, are they going to steal the car where the door's unlocked or there's an alarm system on it? They're probably going to open up that door and just get in that car. If there's money on the seat versus digging into a trunk, they're going to take the money that's on the seat. That's the same thing with fraud. You hear about complex AI scams, and believe me, they're out there. There's complex scams left and right, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be, how can I get money easiest and quickly. The quickest path is always going to be the one taken, because that's the goal, right? You get that money, you take it, and you hide it somewhere. That's where the money laundering aspect comes in, where you're trying to move it through different channels. But at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. It's always going to be, how can I get money quickly and easy? But you can see here the evolution. It's only been about 20 years, 30 years, over the course of time, where we've seen some changes, but ultimately the theme is the same. Stolen identities, taken over accounts, just the manner of doing so is different. I know that there's a lot of concern these days over elder abuse, and there's reasons why, right? There's a lot of wealth in elder individuals, and that is the main thing, right? Fraudsters want money. They want to go after where the money is. So that's why they're focused on an elder population. But there's also a younger generation abuse that's becoming more and more prevalent. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from earlier when I said I want to educate people. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of fraud and what it means, and just basically financial literacy. And I think there's a little bit of that gap that we're seeing in a younger generation that I want to close, because now we're seeing targets on both ends. And there's still some in the middle, but the focus is on both ends of the spectrum there. So
Hey, Tim, if I can ask real quick,
yeah.
um, I got to thinking as you're talking just how, it's one thing to receive a phishing email and clicking a link and somebody stealing your credit card. What about, are you seeing anything, or I don't know if you're gonna get into this, but like if you click on something on social media that it looks legit and yet it's not.
Mhm.
I mean, how does that all play into this too with what people are dealing with?
And I think you nailed it right there with the younger generation, right? With social media. That's where the younger generation is, and that's where there's all these ads, and we're entering the holiday season, and I didn't have it in here, but I'd love to talk a little bit about that, just for that education and awareness. Is we're getting into the season where there's something everybody wants, and you're going to see all of these links that say, hey, get it at 20% of the price, or everything that's too good to be true. Chances are it is, right? Like that hasn't changed. That mantra is the same. Too good to be true. So yeah, there are links, and it looks like it's a legitimate marketplace. You're going there and you're buying. Maybe it's a pair of shoes, maybe it's the latest toy, whatever that is. Chances are what they're doing is they're just trying to steal your information, whether it's your personal information or your account information, and you're likely not going to get what you purchase, or you're going to get something that is completely different. And I can share an example. There was a few years back when Nintendo released a game system, like their 30, it was a mini system. It was a really hot holiday item, and I know that my nephew wanted one, and it was really hard to get it. And my mother-in-law, she tried to purchase him one. Well, it was one of those sites, unfortunately, that did not truly sell the game system, and it was about 3 months later, and I think what she ended up getting was a thumb drive um, in the mail. Spent, I don't remember how much money, but made that purchase, and got a thumbnail drive instead of the system. And so that's out there, and it's very easy to click on these things, especially during the holidays. You want to get that right, that purchase right, and you're not thinking of anything else. And I'm right here too, and this is what I do. And sometimes I don't even think to say like, oh yeah, that might be strange, or that might be weird, because you're not always focused on that 100% of the time. So it can happen any way that's possible, to anybody, and it's kind of scary. But yeah, the social media is a big area where they are trying to capitalize on people that are just clicking this deal, that deal, this influencer, that influencer, like all these things. So it's a problem for sure.
Mhm. No, that makes total sense. And I assume from a business standpoint, I mean, businesses are susceptible just because human beings are in the businesses. Is that kind of your take on that?
Mhm. Yeah, well, that, and if you're competing, right? Like if you're selling whatever it is that is desired, that's taking that sale away too. So
Mhm.
like, as human beings, right? Like, when we get to links, and we'll talk more about that, and clicking on this link or clicking on that link, like those are some of the scariest things you can do as a business leader, as a being a part of a business. Like that is their way in. and
Mhm.
and so whether it's for making a purchase, making a gift purchase, whatever that is, like that's the way in. You are doing something that allows them access.
Hmm. We actually just got an email from one of our members yesterday that she said, "Hey, I think this is fake," and it was. And we'd seen it a couple other times from a couple other people, and but somebody was trying to sell 5,000 plus contacts from the chamber for like $1,200 to our members. And we're like, yeah, we don't have that many contacts in our system, nor do we sell them. But they were trying to basically, sell that, and people are really, you know, we need to be smarter or questioning it kind of, and it's hard, right? So, hey, Kim says over here that in the
Hmm.
comments too, um, and she says, I've leaned, especially with social media advertising, to check reviews for the listed company, not their own website reviews. Many companies are tracking these scam companies, and the info is readily available if you check. Have saved me multiple times.
Yes, that's a great point, Kim. Anytime, and that's kind of my message too. Going beyond that too, donations, whether it's from a business or from an individual. Charities, there's fake charities all over the place. The biggest thing I can say is research. Do your own research. Don't click on that link. Basically, so if something pulls up and says, hey, click here to do this, do a Google search. Whatever you need to find that information somewhere else. That's the same thing I tell people all the time. If you think Wright-Patt's calling you, hang up the phone and call us back.
Mhm.
Call us at our number that to be legitimate. Don't call the number that was provided in a voicemail or an email or whatever that is. And that's the same thing as Kim's saying, is do your own research. You have to ask yourself those questions. You have to do that yourself to make sure you're protecting yourself.
That's good.
So great call out. This, I kind of want to just talk very briefly about. There's a lot of I think probably misconception of the dark web and, what it actually looks like. Is this scary place that people are surfing around? It's truly not. I mean, there's call centers in the dark web. There are information sites. It's as organized as you could possibly think it would be. So the reason I bring it up is partially because there is some piece of information, whether it's business related, personal, that's compromised somewhere on the dark web. We've seen enough of these, breaches, in different organizations, whether it's Equifax, AT&T. There's our information's out there somewhere. Now, do they have the ability to pull that information together and create that profile on us? Hopefully not. But more and more, that information is getting organized. There are, when you think of fraud operations, it's not necessarily just this person, next door there, or, I know historically we're not getting those. Hey, I am a prince in Nigeria, and I need you to, move my money to America. It's not as much like that now. There's whole operations. People have job titles in fraud, so it's very organized, which makes it even harder for us to try to keep up and to try to stop what's happening. So, and AI, voice technology is making that a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to put out some scary statistics, just to review. And I have some that are specific to businesses, but this is just generally 2024 fraud. 12.5 billion dollars that was reported lost. And if you think about it, not everybody's reporting fraud because people are afraid or, ashamed, whatever that may be. They're not comfortable sharing that, hey, I lost this money. So that 12.5 billion is probably actually, I don't know about much less, but it's definitely less than the amount of fraud that actually took place in 2024. And it's, you see 33%. Like if you're, thinking about it from a business perspective, if you're successful 33% of the time, 1 in 3 people that you're essentially cold calling, I feel like that's pretty successful. So fraud is a successful business, which is why it's not going anywhere. And, I alluded to it earlier, younger people were being targeted more. And then obviously older adults, lose higher quantities of money just because that is where the source of funds are. And then obviously businesses as well. That's going to be a target too, because there's deeper pockets depending on the business. So again, it's always about the money. That's why they're here. So So this is probably the biggest one that I'd like to talk about today, which is business email compromise. And this is something businesses have to be aware of. It comes in all shapes and sizes, but ultimately what it is, it's an attempt to compromise a business through email. And that can happen in multiple ways. That can happen through, hey, I'm just trying to deviate a payment, or I am now taking over an email account and I'm now in your server. I am now in your back door. I can do all things in your business that you don't want me to do. So it can kind of run the gamut, but ultimately it starts with an email. And probably the most common that I would think we would see is that vendor email compromise. Most businesses have vendors that they deal with, whether it's an invoice, whether it's an ordering, whatever that is. The simplest is, hey, ABC building, we updated our account for this invoice. Please send the funds to this. And if you in your day-to-day business are working, you got a lot to do. Everybody has a lot on their plate. You might miss that and just say, okay, I'm just going to take that new account, put it in there. Next thing you know, you've sent an ACH or wire out to a fraudulent account, and that money's gone. And so that's probably the simplest. And again, like I said, always go for the simplest method. That's a quick grab. Especially as businesses, we're sending out funds that are, in the thousands, tens of thousands at times, depending on what kind of vendors you're working with. And that's an easy way to lose a chunk of money. You can see statistically, you're not going to get that money back. Chances are, especially with the types of or the avenues in which the payments are being made, right? Whether, especially a wire's gone. It's going to be hard to recover that, because by the time you realize it's gone, it's already probably moved 3 accounts away, and at this point might be in crypto. So um, this is by far probably one of the biggest threats to businesses, because, like I said, it could be as simple as that, but it could go all the way to, I have compromised and now I have taken over the account of an employee of this institution. I've been able to now access all of your records, whether that's whether you are a medical facility, whether you are a financial institution, whether you're whatever business it is, there's going to be things that they're gonna be able to take. And, hopefully it doesn't get to the point of ransomware, because obviously that's a huge risk. But they could take that information and, kind of hold it hostage and say, hey, we have all of your patients' records. What are you going to do to get it back, essentially? And you're not going to be able to operate unless you get this info, unless you pay us this amount of money. So it can really run the entire gambit of concern from a fraud perspective, to as simple as losing $10,000 to being completely locked out. I recently gave a presentation with an individual who talked about one of the most unique things they had seen is a business had all of their doors essentially computerized. It was automatic. So there was a takeover essentially of that operating system, and they locked everybody out of the building. That there was no way for anybody to enter because everything was automatic, everything was computer based. So it was just a matter of like, we can control these doors now, you can't. And so it was just kind of interesting that like it can be physical. It's not even like I'm holding your building hostage. Essentially, it's not even I'm holding information. So there's a lot of different ways that can go. One other thing I'd like to kind of point out here, which might surprise people, the second highest source of business email compromise attacks are coming in the U.S. Because I know when people think about it, they don't think that fraud is originating here. But I like to tell people when they ask, like, hey, who's doing this? Who's doing that? It's your neighbor. It's someone down the street. Like it could be any number of people at this point. It's lucrative and it's an easy way to kind of try to get ahead. So for me, some tips, and we'll go over some more detailed tips in a bit, but how to protect against the business email compromise. If you don't have phishing simulations, that's probably the biggest thing. I know our phishing simulations are actually quite good, probably one of the best that I've been a part of. Some it's really easy to tell, but these I'm like, I have to think a little bit. I was like, is this actually from HR, or is this actually a phishing email? So we do a lot of that here. Dual approvals, checks and balances kind of thing. So make sure somebody has eyes on it. Don't let one person be the single point of failure, essentially. Don't have one controller who's approving all the invoices, and there's no oversight over that. Have different verification protocols. We'll get to one, a very unique one here that's becoming more and more prevalent. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But at the end of the day, education and awareness. And I think, Chris, you said it at the beginning, is nobody wants to talk about fraud, but we can't let it be the elephant in the room. Like, it has to be talked about. There has to be awareness amongst all of the employees of the business. It truly does take everyone, because it can happen anywhere where there's a compromise with any employee. And that's the biggest thing, is everybody has to be aware what to do in these types of situations.
Hey, real quick on the stat of 120,000 average loss, that I, I'm assuming there's multiple aspects of that loss as far as lost business or not just cash even. So can you speak to that a little bit of what all that might even include for people to think about?
Yeah. So average loss per incident, obviously that means whether that's one payroll deviation or diversion, or an invoice diversion. Like it can obviously be, you lose a vendor completely. You
Mhm.
know, you sent a $60,000 payment to, you know, the vendor you thought you were sending it to. They didn't get it. Next thing you know, you're out of business with that vendor because you've lost $60,000. You don't have $60,000 to pay them again. You can't recover those funds. So then, you know, that's essentially like you're losing that business. So you could lose the vendor, you could lose business, you can have reputational risk with it, like all of these things that can kind of play into it. But at the heart of it is yeah, like you have your situations that can rise up to $100,000 or $1 million or $250,000. It can be all over the place, and it's it's truly loss of revenue. You know, you if especially like think about it that way too. If you're thinking about a
Mhm.
ransomware type situation, it's how much revenue you're losing if you've been locked out of everything for a week or
Yeah.
even a day.
Yeah.
Um, so so different factors can be at play there, and there's no one type of loss. To your point, Chris.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is that there, like you said, if your building gets locked up and nobody can come in,
Yeah,
and if it's a storefront, especially, right? Like they can't do
yeah,
retail, but even if it's your employees can't get in to do the work, that they
yep,
need to do. I mean, there's all sorts. It just makes me think about there's so many different aspects of that really can come into play that probably a lot of people wouldn't. They only think about maybe the cash value of somebody stole money
hmm,
from me, but the loss is also what could have been made or earned that day.
yeah. Um, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about this, but I've done multiple presentations with our cover point counterpart who, if you don't have, you know, there's it's just this is just for, you don't have to go to Wright-Patt, but talk to your insurance agent
Mm.
about the types of protections you can have. You know, there are specific plans now against these types of compromises, so that if you are locked out of your retail shop, whatever it is, that you can file this claim and they are able to reimburse you. So that's just kind of like a plug for, look at your insurance policy as a business owner or as a business leader and say, hey, are we protected against this? What are we protected against? Because there's different levels, and insurance companies definitely um, will be able to give you a better indication of like, hey, how do I make sure that I can keep running my business if something like this happens?
Mhm.
So, just a thought too is like, that's not as much how to protect. That's how to protect your business. That's not going to protect against the fraud that happened, but it's going to help you restore yourself. So that's another way to kind of think about it.
Mhm.
Is let's think about that. How do we move forward after the fraud happened?
Mhm.
So, all right. This is kind of a fun one, and I don't know how many CEOs are out there, or you know, anyone who deals directly with the CEO of the business. More and more, we are seeing these texts come in where it's a CEO is asking an employee for gift cards. My first question to everybody would always be, is this something that would normally happen? I
Mhm.
know that my CEO here at Wright-Patt would not call me and ask me to get him gift cards. There is a certain protocol that would happen where if he needs gift cards, there's a way to go about it, and it's not through me. So, but essentially, what happens is it's a type of business email compromise. Somebody is impersonating the CEO or other, executive, whether it's a chief financial officer or somebody else, depending on the business and how it's run. But essentially, what they're doing is they're saying, hey, can you go get these Apple gift cards? Can you go get these Amazon gift cards? Whatever it is, the goal is untraceable funds sent, and they're always going to ask, hey, can you read me that information? Can you take a picture and send it to me? I got to get this over to my client, or whatever that is. So, most people, when they get a text from a CEO or an executive, are going to start that whole like panic, like, why am I getting contacted? Right. But that, which is going to make, that's the whole goal, is like, I don't want you to think, if I'm a fraudster, I don't want you to think, I just want you to react. And that's what's happening here is, you get a text from the CEO, you get a call from your CEO, whatever that is, and they're saying, hey, I need you to do this. And your first thought is like, absolutely, I want to do this for my CEO. But the first question should be, is this even a me thing? Um, so a couple ways to protect against this too: make it so that, as a business, you need 2 levels of approval for somebody to go out and buy gift cards, or restrict that corporate card use so that you can't use it for this type of thing. I'll pause for a second because I see Kim's got a hand up.
I would, I was just going to comment on what you're talking about, CEO. It seems like they select people in authority, right? That you're going to think, oh,
Hmm.
well, if they're asking me. It was a Saturday night about a week before Christmas a couple years ago, and I got a text message from our priest. Now, I didn't even have my priest phone number, right? But it said,
Yeah,
hey, Kim, this is Father Satish, and I'm at the hospital visiting someone, but we have an urgent need in the parish, and I'm wondering if, right, you could get gift cards.
yeah,
And for
yeah,
a moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm surprised he would think to call me, but
yeah,
okay, let me, what can I do? And I'm like, wait, stop. This does not make sense, right? I mean, like what you're saying,
yeah,
it doesn't make sense. So I reached out to the secretary at church. I had her number and I knew her. And I'm like, Mel, do you think this is legit? I mean, with this, and she said,
yeah.
let me reach out to him, right? And no, and you're the fourth parishioner apparently he's heard from tonight. So, but
Wow.
and so like
Yeah.
not only like ignoring it, but maybe alerting someone to it so that they
Yes.
put it out because they ended up putting out a social media post then saying,
Hmm.
hey guys, someone's, using Father Satish's name. And so anyway, I just shared that.
No,
As I was listening to you, it made me think of that.
that's perfect. You handled that exactly how I would hope anybody would handle it. Like you put it down, call a person, you do that verification on your own, and also you've alerted everybody too, right? Like you were the fourth person. Like now it's like, okay, this is a thing. Well, let's get that message out. That's exactly how it should work, and that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that that's how it worked out for you. But it to your point, it's anybody. It's heartstrings, it's authority, it's pressure. I liken fraud, especially the scam type of fraud, to high pressure sales. Like that's the same concept. Is I don't want you to think, I just want you to buy this thing. Like,
Mm.
and I'm going to convince you to buy it. And that's the same thing with scams, with fraudsters, when they're going to call and they're going to say, or they're going to send you that text is like, I really need this from you, and this is something you want to do. So it's really hard. So Kim, I love the way you handle that. That's great.
Mm.
um but yeah, and that's the verification, right? Like maybe the secretary is the person who always does that, so then you call the secretary and say, hey, isn't this something you would do, or is this, is this weird? Like what's going on here?
Mm.
So I love that. But that's exactly, I don't that's exactly how it should play out. Like that's perfect. So biggest thing though is it's going to be gift cards this time, it's going to be something else next time,
Yeah.
so it's all about that way in. But love that, and I love the real world story because it helps really like understand it.
Mhm.
So all right, so those are a couple big business things, but I want to talk a little bit like, what do we do? How do we fight fraud? How do we spot a scam? How do we spot fraud? um I think, Kim, you nailed it already. Like I don't even really need to go into it much. Is it's unexpected communication, right? Like that was unexpected. Anything that is fraud is likely to be unexpected. Now we're in the season, whether it's, you're getting deliveries for a business, whatever that is, we kind of have a little bit of that crossover. We are expecting communication about deliveries, but that's also a way that they're trying to get in there and say, hey, there's an issue with your delivery. Click on this link, and now everything's compromised. So we're in that season of balance. But at the end of the day, is it unexpected in how it's communicated? Is it unexpected in when it's communicated? Kind of go back to those thinking stairs. How does this communication make sense? Um, I already kind of alluded on it, like that pressure to act quickly, and it can be pressure in different ways. Kim nailed it. Is like there's heartstring pressure, there's
Yeah.
law enforcement pressure, because that's a big one, right? Like that's an easy way to get people nervous. Hey, this is the IRS, you didn't pay your sales taxes. Like, hey, this is the IRS, you didn't pay these taxes, whatever it is. And if you don't do this, if you don't send me $1,000 in Apple gift cards, this is, we're gonna knock on your door tomorrow and arrest you.
Right. Or
That doesn't make sense.
the risk of like when they say to you that there's a $1,900 Apple charge on your PayPal account.
Hmm.
And if we can address this now, we can stop the credit charge
Hmm.
going through. But if you don't, it's going to go through, right?
Yep.
I had one of those recently, and I got
Yeah.
real squeamish as he started asking me questions. I'm like, wait a minute, you should know that information if you're really looking at
Yeah.
my PayPal account, buddy, you know.
Yes.
I hung up and I called back in, like you just said, right? But you learn
Yep.
those things from the little missteps you make early on, right? That's, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
I learned. So yeah. But
No, and
you're right.
that is perfect. Again, like for me, I got one of those emails a while back where it's like it was PayPal, and I'm like, I don't have a PayPal account. Like, but my other thought is, excuse me, did someone create a PayPal account for me? So I did the same thing as I called PayPal directly and said, hey, I got this email. Can you tell me, what's going on here? Do you have an account for me? Like what's happening? And they were just like, no, we don't see anything here for you. Like that's a scam essentially. So that business also wants to help you. The legitimate business, whether it's FedEx, whether it's UPS, whether it's PayPal, they want to also help you not fall for this fraud because they don't want that reputation as well.
Right.
That's good.
My biggest thing, and Kim, I think you hit on it with the gift cards, and how we do this is like, think about how they're asking you to pay. In any kind of like, do people normally ask for gift cards? No, no. Like, I don't even understand why people like. I mean, I do understand, but at the same time, it's like that should be a red flag right there. I don't need to give. I've never paid anybody with gift cards before. Why am I paying them now? Why are you suddenly asking me to send you a wire payment for this invoice when I normally send you, an ACH? Those are the kind of things, like, those are red flags that the payment itself could tell you, like, this is weird, and especially if you have a vendor that you're working with, like, pick up the phone and call your vendor, not in the email, not the email address that you got it from, not the phone number in the email, the number that is legitimate. Call that and say, hey, did you change your payment account? Did you want a wire instead of an ACH? Because they're going to be like, no, definitely not. So just kind of thinking through those aspects of it is, there's a lot of red flags out there for you to see. It's not perfect. Even though AI has been introduced, there's a lot more out there available, a lot more resources. It's still not to that point where you can't spot it. And just kind of a tip, I will say, because AI is getting better. And so these impersonations, whether it's of a CEO, executive, a parishioner, a priest, whatever it may be, if you're in a position where you are handling some aspects of finances, or you have some sort of access, any kind of employee in that regard, especially small business, whatever it is, like, I do it with my family. We have a passphrase at this point because AI has gotten to the point now where, like, impersonations can be so good that we need to make sure that we know we're talking to each other and it's not something that was cloned. It's not a voice clone. It's not a face clone, like all of that. So that's kind of my thing too, is like, and that's sort of that verification. Like, maybe that's part of your verification process, is you have that passphrase. Like, this is truly CEO John Doe, meatballs and fries, something, I don't know, something ridiculous, something somebody's not going to guess. Don't actually use meatballs and fries, I guess, now that I've said it like that. But anyway, that just is the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know why, but
I love that. But I love that tip though, Tim, because I think that's something, it feels old school, right? I mean, I remember as a kid, we were supposed to have passwords for, like, if a stranger was going to pick you up from
Yep.
school. I remember that as, being taught that.
Yep.
And, but today it's like, how important could that be for a team at a business or a
Yep.
family? It's like, that's worth the price of admission to this presentation today, right there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's huge. All it takes now is from my understanding, in 3 seconds to mimic a voice. Just a 3-second recording. So, like, that's like kind of my advice too, is don't have your voice on your voicemail. I know it's hard as a business, but, like, have something automated, because if you have, like, a certain person of authority on a voicemail, like, that can be all they need is 3 seconds of that voice, and they can create that voice clone. So that's where the passphrase comes in. That's where it's like, you got to think about things that you didn't have to think about before. And
That's another tip right there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm wondering too, Tim, just from the employer standpoint. I mean, Chris mentioned, this email that's been going around that we were made aware of yesterday. So there's an email that it came from. I mean, would you advise, the employers to respond to that email or email that person and say, hey, cease and desist? Or what can we do when those things happen to prevent them from reoccurring?
So anytime you get an email that you suspect is fraudulent, right? Whether it's asking you to click on a link, whatever that is, if you don't have a phishing system that you review it and it takes care of it in that manner, don't reply, don't engage, because one of the things too, and that's why you get all these calls, right? Like all these spam calls, like the goal of those calls is to ensure that there's somebody on the other line. Same with these is like, okay, now you've replied. I know that even though you didn't reply in the way I wanted, there's an incentive there for you to reply. So maybe I didn't get you this time. Maybe I'll get you that next time, whatever that is. So if you're talking about your general run of the mill scam type emails, don't reply to it. Delete it, send it to your spam, send it to your phishing. If you have a phishing program, obviously that's going to be the best way to go about it. But don't reply to it, just delete it. And then, but I would also make aware, as generally speaking, like, hey, I've gotten this email, you screen capture it, whatever it is, and just say, hey, look out for this. That's the education and awareness part, is like, don't engage with that email, but also bring that awareness that this is what I just seen. We do that a lot with Wright-Patt. Is we have a be on the lookout channel essentially that we use, where we can put out like different blasts to our partners here that say, hey, this is something we're seeing as a fraud department. Look out for that. Or here's a text that's going out that looks like it's from Wright-Patt. Be aware when you're talking to members, this is fraud. This is a toll scam, whatever that is. So I would say don't engage. Obviously, if there is a situation where it's more of the ransomware type, that's a little bit different, and that requires a little bit different approach at times. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about just your general scam emails or even your impersonation emails, if you have information security within your business, report that email address. That's probably one thing that you can do, is you can try to like kind of get that blocked. I would say from that perspective, that's your best course if you have something within your business to do that. Talk to IT, whatever that is, to how do we block this? How do we report this? And there's all kinds of information you can report to like the FTC as well. So if you see that information, that's a channel that helps. Generally, it's not going to help your specific situation at that point in time, but it's all about data too, right? The more data we can have on people that are doing the fraud, the better we're going to be able to react to that. I don't know if that
So
answers
Tim,
completely the question, but
yeah, with that in mind, I know that, like on Outlook, you can like right click and report phishing or, whatever. Does that mean that Microsoft then, or if you have Google, are they the ones who are then in that system? Are they the ones reviewing that type of information?
So for us within ours, our fish button goes directly to our information security. So that's different. If it's just through your general Outlook, yes. If it's Microsoft, it'll go through Microsoft's filters, and it'll obviously take that as data, but it'll also review it. Yes. So if it's just your general like Gmail or Outlook, whatever that is, it's going to go back to that source, that host of the
Okay.
domain.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Unless, like I said, your business already has its own, then it'll obviously go through your business.
Right. Gotcha.
So yeah. Just a couple, I know we're getting close to the hour, just a couple things to remind you of too. How do you stay safe online? We talked about links to different places earlier. Look for that HTTPS, that security it'll have a padlock. It'll be right there. It'll tell you, hey, this is a secure site. Chances are, if you're going somewhere else, hover over the link. You don't have to click on it, but if you hover over it, it'll still tell you where it goes. So look and see if it's going to be that secure site. Look and see where it's actually going to take you. Always a big fan of, I think, Chris, we talked about this, like the multi-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody like doing it? No. It's a little bit of friction, and we talk as a fraud department, it's like, how do you find that balance? And as a business too, right? For your customers, how do you balance that friction with user experience? And you have to find that balance, because you want a great user experience, but you also want to protect your customers, your members, whoever that is, from fraud. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to find that balance of how much friction can I put up there. Everybody does a multi-factor authentication these days, so like now it's becoming just part of life, so that's less friction than it would have been 5 years ago. So I think that's kind of the way it goes, is like we just catch up, where yes, it's a lot of friction now, but in 5 years it's just going to be commonplace.
Yeah.
So keep your software updated. That's one too. That's an easy way for fraudsters to kind of get in the back door, so to speak. If you have company phones that you're using and not everybody's up to date. I know I get emails that are nicely and strongly worded to update my system if I forgot to, on our company phone. So if you have phones for your employees, update them. Make sure they're updated. Have something in place to make sure that everybody's got the most updated software, because oftentimes that software update is to take care of these gaps, to take care of these security issues. So don't, and please, along the same line, please don't work on public Wi-Fi if you're handling, especially if you're doing business stuff. Like if you're not doing anything financial and personally you want to use your public Wi-Fi, your personal phone, you want to send messages, text, play games, whatever it is, like, so be it. But don't use the public Wi-Fi to transact or do business. Like that should be just like, don't do it. Similarly, if you are traveling for business, or you're in a public place that has a charging station, those can be compromised. I will always plug into the wall. The outlets on the wall are not able to be compromised at this point, but they can put things in the chargers, whether it's at an airport, whether it's some other charging station. They can put something in there that takes your data. So my advice is always take something with you and even in the hotel, like I don't trust it in a hotel room. I'm plugging it into the wall and I'm using my own charger for that. So just kind of another one of those little tips. I think we hit on a couple of these: researcher, sellers, research, vendors, research on your own. Man, I tell people, don't ever answer the phone and don't click on anything. That's how I live my life, kind of, which is, not completely true, but I know it's hard as a business to not answer the phone, right? You can't not answer the phone, but just be aware when you do that, chances are that, I don't know, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 is probably going to be somebody trying to, it's a spam call of sorts. So
Tim, can I ask you a question? When you said
yeah.
even in hotel rooms, so like a lot of the hotel rooms have those little boxes with all the charger ports and stuff. You're saying if we plug into that could be compromised.
So if, the software is available to kind of almost like a skimming, right? Like a skimming device in an ATM or a gas station, whatever that is, that can go into that port to try to transfer some of that data. That's a technical area that I'm not completely familiar with as far as like the details. How does it happen? How does it do all this? But so for me, like, yeah, and I have one of those wall chargers here so that I could do it on my own. And I know that that's not compromised, but more of my concern would be the ones that are like in the lamps. But if there's stuff that's, if there's ever a USB port that can be compromised, I guess is in a public place. Hopefully it's not compromised in your private residence or within your business. But generally speaking, that's why I was like, I just stick to the outlet. I don't take that chance. I am pretty risk averse, I guess, in that way. And like I don't own an Alexa or an Echo or like anything. I know our phones are always listening. I get it, but like beyond that, so it's also like it's a risk tolerance. It's how much it's convenience versus risk. The more convenient it is, the higher level of risk it probably is. So, and I've heard many, I heard a speaker once who, like, his job is just that, is information security. It's, he's aware of everything there that could possibly go wrong. And he's like, I have an Alexa in every room of my house. I was like, I understand the risks and I'm willing to accept it because so it's kind of that risk tolerance there now, because chances are in your hotel room and you're plugged in and there's a USB port, is it likely to be compromised? Probably not. But I'm personally not willing to take that risk. And but that's just me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just a couple things. I know we're getting close to it. So here's some things to do if you do find fraud. Whether it's, within your business, some sort of compromise, even if it's some, I know we didn't talk much about it, but insider fraud, I hope it never happens, but that's something that can happen. And that's not as much my area of expertise, but one thing, just to the same protocols apply. Make sure there's multiple eyes on it. Make sure there's not a single point of failure. That's how you prevent insider fraud in these aspects. And it could be somebody, if you have a partner, I spoke with somebody a month ago, and her role as a forensic accountant. Essentially, they go in after the fact, what happened in this business. And there's times where it's a partner of 25 years had been stealing money for the last 5. So, like, it can happen in any situation. Just make sure you have checks and balances, even if you trust somebody implicitly. Just have that check there just in case, and have that open conversation. Be like, I want you to check me just as much as I'm checking you, if you're a business owner and in that kind of situation. But it all comes down to, like, have protocols in place, have controls in place. Like, that's the way you strengthen your business, putting controls in place so that that somebody is there to verify that this is legitimate, or to double check to make sure nothing bad is happening. And then again, contact your financial institution, dispute it, file police reports, all the things if something like that happens. But that's it. I know we're right up on it. So
Yeah, this was great, Tim. I really appreciate it. It's definitely, I'm jotting down some notes over here, even, for family purposes as well. And I think that's, like we talked about, this is really, and that's what I mentioned before we even started the presentation, that we have a cybersecurity, consultant and expert here in the chamber that, one of the things he's mentioned to us, it's like, wherever people are, there could be problems, right? Because we're the ones that are being targeted. It's not just the devices the devices are just kind of what's being utilized. So
we are the path of
trend.
least resistance in that we are not, we're not a computer program that can detect that kind of stuff. So it's easier to target us.
Anybody else have any questions? This has been excellent.
Has been.
I think it was great. I really appreciate it. I learned something new this time too, so it was really great. And it's a scary world out there with everything, with AI and all the different tools. I know that I've been warned about the airport thing for a long time, and I actually have like a data blocker. I don't know if it works or not, but at least I feel kind of better with it, Tim.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I take that with me, but it is scary about how easy it is. I look at, you talked about elderly and our young folks, and my mom is, you wish you could. She's 86 and she loves Facebook, and anything that looks too good to be true, she's clicking on it,
My
Tim.
mom too.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've let's see, I think we've got new debit cards and things probably about 6 times this year because of fraud. It's terrible. And I hate it that they target elderly folks that just don't know any better. They just like think that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to get this great product at a cheap price, and it's what I've always wanted, and blah blah blah, and then they steal from them. So it's sad. But
No, it is. And I've, before I really got into this industry, it made me angry, right? Like, how could somebody do that? And the more I learn about, and this is thinking of the bigger picture fraud organizations, where they have job titles, they have people, like they have call centers, all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of the people that are doing it are unfortunately forced to do it too. So like they're being either trafficked or, whatever that may be. So does it make it better? No. But I also now have a different perspective than I used to, that it's not just somebody who's like I'm just going to get this. Like there is somebody doing that up here, but like the people that are doing the legwork are probably people that don't want to, or are being forced to, or that's their only option. So I have a little different perspective. It doesn't make it okay, and I'm still here to stop it, but it's a little different way to think about it too.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I mean, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes of it all and who's behind it and everything. And but no, this has been excellent. So folks, yeah, I hope that you will take some things to heart here and make some adjustments. I know that I've got some conversations to take home with my family even, and some office conversations here that Wendy and I and Susie can talk about how to make sure. Even just the other gold nugget that I picked up, Tim, was not using your voice on your voicemail. Like who, I mean, that's crazy, but it's one of those things that we just have to be mindful of today. So,
Yep.
so thanks for all this. It's definitely given us a lot
Absolutely.
to learn and consider, and we're really appreciative of your time.
Yes, thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having
This
me.
was awesome.
And thanks to the chamber for hosting it.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And we will, folks, we'll have this on, we'll put this on YouTube once the recording's done. It's been being live streamed on our Facebook page, and so we'll have this out there for other folks to be able to listen to it. So if you know somebody that you're like, they need to listen to this, we can send it their way, the YouTube link. So, and then we won't be having another business boost in December, but we will be doing it again in January. So, and then Tim, you got a couple resources it looks like here.
Yeah, just since it was streamed and recorded, just want to have that up there. Those are a
Yeah.
couple, come to our site, you can learn about how to stop fraud, but also go to the FTC. They'll
Okay.
tell you all about it.
Excellent. Thank you for
and
that.
they can report it too. So
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Tim, thanks for being here again today, and we will see you guys later.
Right. Thank you
Thank
guys
you
so
so
much
much.
again.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Wow.